After teaching students a new concept, it's time to assess their overall understanding and comprehension. When this includes a heavy dose of new vocabulary, utilizing a Cloze strategy with a Z is one of my favorites. At first glance, a Cloze passage may appear to be a simple fill in the blank. However, if you follow particular parameters, you can develop a powerful vocabulary assessment tool. First, let me be clear as to when I propose using a Cloze passage. I'd use it after learning as a vocabulary assessment. Otherwise, you're going to just have kids arbitrarily plucking words and filling in blanks, guessing as to what you want. So let's assume you've studied a concept, for example, organisms in science, and you're ready to wrap up the unit of study and give some kind of assessment. And one of the things you really want to measure is students' understanding of essential vocabulary. So you want to try a Cloze passage. The first step is to make a list of the key terms that you expect students would have mastered during this unit on organisms. Then generate a summary of the content covered and use those words, those domain-specific terms within the summary. Such a summary might look and sound like this, and that leads to step 3, where you then strike through the terms you expect students to be able to fill in. So the whole concept of a Cloze strategy is that students can insert the missing words within the context of that paragraph. However, don't think that after these 3 simple steps, you're good to go. This is a pretty common mistake that teachers sometimes make. You have to plan to revise that first draft. You see, the secret to a well-written Cloze passage is the use of context clues. With this being the first draft, what you're going to want to do is insert information before and after each of those blanks to provide students some helpful hints. Remember, you wrote a simple summary of content, but you didn't really embellish, elaborate, and develop each of the ideas. You were just talking globally. Well, if we want students to really think through what fits in the context of this passage, then you have to provide them some context. Otherwise, they're just playing guess what the teacher wants and fill in the blank. So step 4 of creating a Cloze passage assessment is to go back and insert in synonyms and examples and other helpful clues. So, for example, using our organisms passage here, my original sentence was, organisms compete for the resources they need to survive when living in the same ecosystem. Okay, wait a minute. It's really hard when you put 2 blanks in one sentence. So you might break that up. And hey, if resources is what we're trying to get kids to infer, then let's give some examples of resources in the adjacent sentence. Organisms compete for the blank they need to survive. These include air, water, food, and space. Now, if we're also trying to get them to understand ecosystem, then what about some synonyms? Community, habitat, ecosystem. Putting all 3 of those with 1 being a blank in a row, that is a context clue. When making your revisions to your initial summary, you want to remember what we teach students about inferring context clues as readers. We tell them to look for helpful information, details, definitions, examples, and to look before the unfamiliar word and after the unfamiliar word. That's how authors help you figure out an unfamiliar word. So in the revision, we have to do that as well. The final step is to rewrite the whole summary, adding in those extra context clues, details, and add a title, as that helps kids with main idea and kind of get their thinking started. And finally, delete those vocab terms to create the blanks that the students have to fill in. Within the print version of this video article, you'll find a list of additional tips for how to differentiate a Cloze passage for younger students, ELLs, and those with special needs.